Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Becky Alexander Frost, and if you've tuned in today, you'd be wanting to make this clutch bag. Hi, welcome back to the RjAf Makes channel. I'm Becky, and today I'll be teaching you how to make one of the clutch bags from the latest free pattern that's on my website, RjAfmakes.com, and we are going to make the elegant, I can't say that word, elegant clutch bag. So it's got a nice little handle, which is the bow, which you can hold it either way. So in the video I'll be making two versions. One full PU for those advanced bag makers, and one part PU, leather and fabric, or if you're American, vinyl. Sorry, I'm British. So yeah, be making this one as well, which is for those who are new to bag making or need a little bit of encouragement on trying PU leather. So as I said, this is a free digital download. So if you pop over to my website, that's www.rjafmakes.com, and if you go into the shop section and find digital patterns, you will see this as a free digital download. It's around about 20 pages. I'm not 100% there, but I haven't counted them, but they are around about 20 pages. And there is a couple of templates, because as you will notice, there is 4 bags to make in this series of bags, and the 2 templates, the 3 templates, those 3 templates are for the 2 bags that have got the flaps. So don't worry if you haven't got the facility of downloading. There is a paper pattern version of this pattern. However, there is a small fee for this pattern. So you will get the booklet, so it's a A5 booklet, and the templates at full size, but the fee is a lot cheaper than my normal bag patterns. I'm pointing over my shoulder to all the bag pattern, or the bags that are on that shelf. If you are new to my channel, please click the subscribe button and give me those thumbs up. And if you have any questions throughout this video, or if you just want to generally say hi, please drop a comment. I want to hear what you're making, and yeah, and if you're going to make this and what fabric you're going to use. So please just drop a comment below. This video is all about making this bag and what you will need. So I'm going to go, it's quite a lengthy video. So this video will teach you like what you will need for your sewing machine, what interfacing that you will need, and stabilizers. Talks about the zips, talks about the different types of fabrics. Halfway through the video I will be making both these, that one's upside down. I'll be making halfway through the video both of these versions, but then I will stop making both versions and then just basically make the inside of the bag, because the inside construction and how to bring the bag together is exactly the same instruction. And then when we come to the end of the video, you will be able to see how the bow is constructed for the final steps of both bags, because you will then identify which one that you want to actually make, as in whether you want to do the full PU one or the part PU one. Without further ado, let's get making these bags. Right guys, we're going to make one of the clutches from the pattern today. So we're going to make the bow one, and it's just got one piece of hardware on, which is the zip component on top. It's got a slip pocket, and that is basically it, and it's quite a large bag. This slip pocket can be divided into 2, so you can put some your credit cards in if you need to. Also, this is the only one in the pattern that hasn't got a wrist slip, because you can actually put your hand through the bow section and carry it that way. Right, so I'm going to be teaching you 2 ways today of making this bow. So I'm going to show you a full PU one, and I'm going to show you the 2 types of PU that you are going to need for the bag. And then I'm also going to make a part PU one and a fabric one. And that will be ideal for beginners, someone that has never made a bag before or has only made 1 or 2 bags. So we're going to, on that easier one, the base, the actual bag itself, which is the black area here on this bag, is going to be PU. And the bow section is going to be fabric. Now I'm going to show you the pattern. Okay, so the pattern comes in 2 forms. So you can actually go to my website, and that's www.rjafmakes.com, and download this pattern for free. And it comes with all the pages that you need to be able to make the 4 bags. Plus there is 2 templates that print out with this one. Or if you do not have a printer or nowhere you can get it printed, for a small fraction of the price you can order the pattern and pay postage and packaging, and get a booklet sent in the post with the templates as well. And the templates are full size. Now this bag that we're making today isn't using the templates. So the templates are for this bag and this bag. It's just for the flaps basically. Right, so I'm going to work with the download because it's slightly larger. So today we are making the 3rd bag in, which is called the Elegant Clutch. Right, so for the Elegant Clutch you need a number 5 zip. So a number 5 zip is a lot different to dressmaking zips. This bit in the middle, which is the actual coil part, is 5mm wide. They're much stronger than number 3s, what normally go in dressmaking. The number 5 zips are a lot stronger and means they're ideal for bag making. I'm using a continuous one which I've cut down myself and put my own zipper pull on. And you'll also need a fat quarter of main outer fabric. So your main outer fabric, this black PU on this here. So if you want to do a full fabric version, you'll need to cut your fabric, and it's going to be a lot larger than the actual fat quarter itself, because when I wrote this pattern it was designed around everything made in PU, and PU is wider. So you'll need 20 inches by 28 inches if you're going to use a cotton fabric for your body. You'll need a contrast fabric. Your contrast fabric is your bow. So it can be either PU or it can be either cotton fabric. Now, if you're going to do the PU version, the complete full PU, I'm using 2 PUs, and I will show you the different types of 2 PUs that I'm using in a minute, but the bow has to be the softer PU, which is like a fashion weight PU. Then you'll need a fat quarter of lining fabric, so that's a large fat quarter. You'll need fusible iron-on fleece, which I'm using Vaseline H640, and 1 meter of iron-on interfacing. I'm actually using Vaseline G700, which is a woven interfacing. Okay, so the 2 bag stabilizers that I'm using today, which is your interfacing and your heavy interfacing, which is your fusible fleece. The interfacing that I'm using is Vaseline G700, which is a woven, which has still got a bit of a stretch to it. You're going to need that for when you make the bow part of the actual bag, because there is a bit of a pull. You do have to pull it out a bit. And also this bag needs a bit of body for when you actually put your hand through the bow section to hold the bag. So this gives it that extra firmness, but it's so easy to sew through, unlike some of the harder non-woven interfacing that you can get. And then the other one is a fusible fleece, which is H640 via Vaseline, and one side has got glue dots. I'm hoping you can picks up on the camera, and the other side is just a fleece. The glue dots is what you fuse to the wrong side of your actual fabric. Now, when you're fusing this, my advice is to have some water in your iron, to have your iron set at just over 2 dots. Have the steam on your iron. You'll need a pressing cloth. Okay, I'm just going to talk a bit about the fabric and jump straight into it then. Right, so for the full PU one, I'm using these two here. The main body is going to be made out of a marine weight PU, which some people call faux leather. This one's got a sheen to it, but it's not a sticky sheen. This can be found from Lisa Lamb from You Handbag. Now, the bow of that particular bag, because I'm making 2 versions with you today, the bow version will have a fashion weight PU. So a fashion weight PU is got a stretch for it. You need that stretch, and it's so much softer. So as you can see, I can drape it and scrunch it up. This one you can scrunch up, but it's not drapeable. And basically this is from Sewing Street. My lining fabric for both bags is going to be just a cotton weight, and I only interface one section within the lining, and that's the slip pocket, to take away the bulk. And for any beginners that struggle, I haven't interfaced the actual main bag lining. So my second version is going to be a part PU and a part fabric. So I've used the Lisa Lamb fabric, PU fabric, but a pink version, obviously, because Becky likes pink. And I've used a cotton fabric. I will go along when I'm actually working with those particular pieces that you've had to cut out. I will go along telling you what's been interfaced and what's had fusible fleece as well. So the last thing I'm going to touch on is a few things that you will need if you're working with full PU or part PU. Okay, so the first 2 are never pin PU, it leaves holes, and which means it's not watertight. You'll need to use wonder clips. You'll also need, and I use this a lot and loads of people are probably laughing now, is wash away tape. Wash away tape means that it can be sewn over and will not gunk your sewing machine. Now, it's known as wash away tape on certain websites, but some websites call it quilter's tape, or the Americans call it wonder tape. So there is different brands and different names out there. So if you just type in one of those 3, you will see a wide range. I'm using 1/4 inch wide on that one. So things that you will need for your sewing machine is, I always work with bag making size 16 needles, so that's 116 needles. And it's a slightly larger needle. It means that it can go through bulk, your bulky seams, because with bag making you do get a lot of bulky seams. The next thing is a must for me is a walking foot. I will never take my walking foot off, even if I'm popping a zip in. And then I'm using Gutermann for red, and I'm using the Sew All thread, which is a polyester thread, so it gives you that stretch. Okay, so like I explained in the earlier clips, I'm going to be making 2 versions, the full PU one and the part PU one. So I'm going to do things from both bags at the same time, so you can see the difference in how to make a part PU one and a full PU one. So my full PU one will have the gold bow to it, and my part PU one will always have this fabric with the flowers on. So you're going to take your bow number 1 piece. I'm not going to give cutting out measurements on this. You will need to download the pattern or pay for the paper pattern to be printed. So I'm just going to pop the number 2 pieces to one side. Right, so you're going to get the number 1 piece and get 1 piece right side facing up. I have interfaced the PU version and I've put G700 woven interfacing on the back. So you're going to get it right side facing up for the 1 piece, and what the other piece right side facing down, and you're going to match it up, and you're going to get your clips, and you're just going to clip around 3 sides. Okay. Right, so on the fabric version, I've got G700 once again on both pieces. If you've got directional fabric, make sure it's going the right way. And you've got the right side facing up on one piece and right side facing down on the second piece. Going to match that up. And I'm going to clip, but if you're using the fabric, making the fabric bow, you can actually pin this part, but not the body part. So I'm just going to be lazy and use wonder clips. Okay, so I'm going to go to my sewing machine. You'll be able to see this on the next clip. Right, I'm not going to sew down these two parts here where there's no clips. I'm only going to sew these parts here, which is your two long sides and your short side. So I'm going to sew 3/8 of an inch away from the edge. So my seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch. Now, don't get placement with the 3/8 of an inch. The seam allowance can change through the pattern, so just follow the pattern as it says. On this one here, the fabric version of the bow, I'm going to use a stitch length on my sewing machine of a 2.4, but on the PU one, I'm going to use a stitch length of a number 3, and I'm going to reverse my stitches at the end and at the start. Right, so like I said, I'm using a stitch length 2.4 because I'm working on the fabric version first. I've got my walking footer on and my size 16 needle, and I've threaded it up with Gutermann thread, and that's the sew all thread. So I'm using a stitch length, a seam of 3/8, and I'm going to reverse my stitch at the start. Right, so my needle is down. I've stopped at the 1 centimetre mark, which is the 3/8 of an inch mark. I'm going to lift up my presser foot and pivot round. Okay, I'm going to pop that one to one side, and I'm just moving over to the PU one. So the PU, I'm taking my stitch length up to a number 3. And using the same needle, the same thread, and I'm going to reverse my stitch. I'm only doing like 3 or 4 stitches at the start. Okay, so I've sewn around the 3 edges on both of those. Now I'm going to get a pair of scissors. Going to snip into those corners at an angle, like so. And then I'm just going to trim back this seam allowance by half. And then I'm going to do exactly the same for this one here. Okay, so you're going to need a pokey tool or a chopstick or something, or a turning tool. We're going to turn this right side facing out. Going to get your chopstick or whatever. I'm using a chopstick, and we're just going to poke out those corners. Okay, like so. Going to do the same with the PU, but when it comes to the corners, you're just going to be a little bit more careful with the PU. So we're going to get the hand in, bring that right side facing out. Okay, so I'm going to deal with the cotton one first because we can't do this next step with the PU. Okay, so I'm going to go to my iron, roll these seams, and give this a really good press. Okay, so I've given that a really crisp press, and I'm just going to pop this to one side because we're going to work on the PU version. So the PU we cannot iron from this side, it damages because it's a plastic base fabric. So what we're going to do is just get the wonder clips, and this part cannot be left overnight or else it leaves marks on your actual PU. So if you're going to put wonder clips in just before you go to bed, take those wonder clips out, go to bed, and then the next day when you want to come back sewing, pop your wonder clips in and then sew it. Don't leave the wonder clips in no more than like 10-15 minutes max. Right, if it leaves a mark, I will show you how to get rid of it. So if it does leave an indent, make sure you've got warm hands, rub that section. It won't get rid of it completely, but it'll make it minimal. You can use a hairdryer on this PU as well. So if you put your hairdryer on hot heat on that area for a few seconds, then use your formal finger to rub that section. It generally should pop out, but that doesn't mean if you leave the wonder clips in overnight, it's more likely those indents won't come out. Right, so the next, because we can't actually iron, we're going to have to roll so we can see the seam. And we're just going to pop a wonder clip around the edge. Okay, at the moment it doesn't look much, but it will once we get to the sewing machine. Right, as you can see, we've both got those pressed or clipped. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is go back to our sewing machine, and we're going to go and top stitch down the 3 sides on both items. Now on the fabric one, I'm going to use a stitch length number 3, and I'm going to stitch approximately, and I'm saying approximately, it doesn't have to be, but try your hardest to get a neat 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And then on the PU version, I'm going to use a stitch length number 4, and I'm sewing top stitching down those 3 sides, and I'm going to do it 1/8 of an inch away, or approximately 1/8 of an inch away from the actual edge. I'm going to pop these two on to one side, and we're just going to move over to bow piece number 2. Okay, so bow piece number 2 is exactly the same process of what we've just done with bow number piece 1 to make this side of the actual bow. As you can see, it's just a bit longer. So I'm not going to do this in the camera footage. In the footage, basically you're going to pop them right sides together, sew all the way around, leaving the turning gap at one of the short ends. Then you're going to cut away that seam allowance once you've sewn it together. Then you're going to turn it right side facing out, give the fabric one a good press, put some clips on once you've rolled the seams of the PU version, and then basically top stitch around the 3 edges. Okay, so that's both pieces done and top stitched. As you can see, the top stitching is all the way around. So we're going to move on to the next part of the pattern. So you should have now on, for your both bows, the fabric version or the PU version, you should have 2 pieces, and that's one shorter piece and one longer piece. So we're going to pop the 2 longer pieces to one side, or the 1 longer piece to one side, and we're going to get the main body piece of the actual bag. So I'm going to work with the flower one to start off with. So I'm using the pink PU from Lisa Lamb, and that's a marine weight. It's a bit thicker. So on the back I have interfaced it with G700, and that's all the way to the edge. Then I've fused fusible fleece to it, but before I fused my fusible fleece, I trimmed back so I'm free of this area of fusible fleece within the seam allowance. my advice is to do that. It will stop any bulky areas and you having to unpick because you can't sew that particular area. Okay, so trim back your seam allowance. And I've used the fusible fleece to the wrong side. Using a quarters rule, you're going to measure down 1 inch from the top. Get your bow and make sure if it's directional printed, which mine is, make sure that that print is facing up. And we're going to pop that just right next to there. And we're going to clip that into place. And then basically I've just matched up the raw edge of the bow piece to the raw edge of the actual main body piece. I do apologise with the light, it's the studio lighting. Okay, so we're going to get the quarters rule now. Just flip that back over a bit like so. And we're going to measure up 1 inch from the bottom edge. And we're going to match this bow's edge to that edge and clip that into place. So you'll notice you've got a gap here. So what we're going to do is just naturally bring our 2 fingers like this and make 2 little tucks where those 2 fingers are. I've approximately done 1 inch away from the top, and it's only a marginal tuck. I'm going to clip that into place. So, and you're just going to do about 1 inch away from this edge of the bow piece here at the bottom. And I'm not kidding, it's about 1/8 of a pinch for those 2 tucks. Okay, so you're going to go to your sewing machine and we're going to base stitch that. I'm just going to do the PU version so you can see how that folds into those tucks. So I'm just going to pop the fabric version to one side. There you go. Right, so we're going to go to our sewing machine and we're just going to sew 1/4 inch away from the edge here on both pieces, and I'm going to use a stitch length number 4.5 on both pieces, and I'm making sure I reverse my stitch at the start and at the end of both pieces. We are going to now move on to attaching the larger piece of the bow. So the same process as before. So I'm just going to flip that open, get my quarters rule, measure inch down, but this time we're going to work on this side of the bag. Okay, make sure you got the directional fabric the correct way. Okay, and I'm just going to clip that first clip into place. Then I'm going to measure 1 inch up and clip that into place. And like we did before, we're just going to pop some pleats in. I'll just do the same process on the PU version. Okay, so just like before, we're going to base stitch 1/4 inch away from the edge on both pieces, and we're going to use a stitch length 4.5. Okay, so we've now sewn 2 bow pieces to the front outer body pieces. We're going to pop these to one side, and I'm going to move on to the zip. Okay, so as explained before, I'm using a continuous zip, which I've put the zip pull on myself. If you're wanting to buy continuous zip and the zip pulls, you can go to my website, that's www.rjafmakes.com. And if you go under the shop section, you'll see all the different bag hardware that I actually sell. So you need a 10.5 inch zip. So mine is 10.5 inches. Now, if you're wondering how to put the zip pull on, over on my YouTube channel, which is RjAf Makes YouTube channel, I actually teach you how to actually put a zip pull on both number 5 zips, which this is what we are using today, and a number 3 zip. And also you'll find on that video I explain in depth what the difference is between a number 5 and a number 3 zip. Okay, so we're just going to pop the zip to one side. We're going to get the 2 zip tabs. Okay, we're going to get the 2 zip tabs, and we're just going to pop quilter's tape on one of the sides. I'll do that on that one. Oops. And some more quilter's tape or wash away tape, depending on what manufacturer you're using. And there. So the next thing we're going to do is peel off the backing tape, and because I've got no half marks here, half inch marks, I'm just going to put my quilter's rule there. I'm going to fold the edge that's got the tape on 1/2 inch in to the wrong side. I'm going to stick that down into place. I'm going to do the same with this one as well. It has to be 1/2 inch because this means it will help with the bulk at the final stages. Okay, so that's 1/2 inch. The next thing we're going to do is run quilter's tape on this side that hasn't been folded and on the folded side. We're going to do that for both tabs. Okay, so I'm going to use one tab at a time. I'm going to peel off the backing tape off the side that hasn't been folded. Okay, I'm going to get the zip that hasn't got the open end, and I'm going to pop that as close as I can to where that folded part starts. Okay. Then I'm going to peel off this backing tape here, and we're going to flip this over and stick that into place. That was easy. Right, so the next one is going to be a tad bit harder because it's open. So we're going to peel off the backing, squeeze this zip together and pop that into place and stick that into place. Peel off that other backing tape and fold the wrong side to the wrong side of the tab and stick into place like so. Right, so if you're using a zip from my shop, they are nylon. They are nylon coils, so it looks metal, but it's actually plastic. So we can actually sew over these ends here. So we're going to go to our sewing machine and stitch just approximately 1/8 of an inch away from that folded edge using a stitch length number 4. We're going to sew over this part, but when we come to this zip area, we're just going to go slow over, and we're going to repeat that for this side as well. I'm going to show you how to do the slip pocket now. Okay, so The slip pocket has been interfaced with G700, Vaseline G700 woven interfacing. We're going to fold the long side in half, right sides together, matching up the two short sides. I'm just going to pop some clips in the two short sides and two clips approximately an inch away from the edge on the bottom. So I'm going to leave about a 3-inch turning gap on the raw side of the two short sides that we matched up together. So I'm just going to draw those on because this will help you to remember where to stop and start. Using a stitch length 2.4 and using a seam allowance 3/8 of an inch. Okay, as you can see, I've sewn down the two short ends and come into where those two marks are and reverse my stitch. I'm now going to trim back the excess, but I'm not going to trim back the seam allowance excess in this area here. You're going to need your turning tool again, or your chopstick. Where that turning gap is, we're going to go and poke out this slip pocket so it's right side facing out. Okay, so we're now going to go to the iron and give this a good press, and then once we've pressed it, we're going to tuck those two seams up inside this slip pocket, making sure the folded edges match, and give that a good press. I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Okay, so we need to attach the slip pocket now to one of the lining body pieces. Okay, so I've got one of the lining body pieces, and this hasn't got any interfacing on whatsoever. So what I'm going to do is fold this in half, so we're matching up the two short sides. I'm just going to give this a really good finger press. I'm going to get the slip pocket and fold that in half and match up the two short ends and give that a bit of a crease. Right, so you need to put this in the centre of here. It's eyeballing it. So if you want to use a measurement that I'm using, I'm going 2 inches down, and I'm just going to pop a pin in there, one here, and one here. I'm going to go back to my sewing machine using the same stitch length of number 3, and I'm going to reverse my stitch starting off here. I'm going to sew down this end, this side here, 1/8 of an inch away from the pocket edge, then across the base 1/8 of an inch away from the pocket edge, and then up the other side 1/8 of an inch away from the pocket edge, and I'm going to reverse my stitch here, and that's using a stitch length number 3. Okay, so I've top stitched that. I didn't top stitch the didn't actually sew across the top because that's obviously a slip pocket. So this slip pocket is the same process for all the bags. So even if you're when I say all the bags, I mean if you're doing a full fabric version, or part fabric version, part PU, or if you're doing a full PU one. So I'm not going to repeat the same process for both of the bags. I just wanted to show you how to do the bow differently. So the lining, the next few steps are treated the same on all the different styles of bags, out of all the different styles of fabric that you can use. Right, so I'm going to move on to the next step, and we're going to attach the zip to the actual bag. Okay, so we're going to move on to the zip, attaching the zip to the bag now. Okay, so for this you'll need the two main outer body pieces. So one hasn't got the bow attached to it, and one has got the bow attached to it. The one that hasn't got the bow attached to it, it's the same as the previous one, where you've got the interfacing on the back, fused to the back, and the fusible fleece. And what I've done is cut away the fusible fleece out of the seam before I've fused the fusible fleece onto the actual wrong side of the PU. And then you've got the main body, the body lining pieces. One's got the slip pocket on and one hasn't got the slip pocket on. So I'm going to start off with the one that hasn't got the slip pocket on. I'm going to use the main body piece that's got the bow attached to it and the zip to start off with. So I'm going to pop those two pieces to one side. Just pop that lining piece to the top area. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to fold this in half and just match up the two corners, top corners. I'm just going to slightly snip into this top area so I know where the center is. Okay, so I've got the top there, the center. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is fold my zip in half, and I'm not going to snip into the zip tape. I'm going to just pop some marks. So I've just got a friction pen here. I'm just going to pop a little mark, and I'm going to do that for both sides while I've got this folded. Okay, as you can see, I've got two marks there. Okay, so obviously this is the front of my bag because it's where the bow is. So the first thing I'm going to do is just pop that to one side and run quilter's tape from here along this edge here. Doesn't matter if your tab's slightly overhanging like it is here, as long as your quilter's tape is on the edge of your zip tape. Okay, so we're going to peel off that backing, like so. I can just about see my mark, so I'm just going to pop that mark back in so you can see it. So as you can see, I've just popped that mark back in. Going to get the main outer piece, and I'm going to flip this right side facing down. So it's right side of the main body piece and right side of the zip. I'm going to line up where that center top is to that center mark here. And that's the first thing that I'm going to line up. I'm matching up the two raw edges. I'm just going to pop a clip in just to help me out. And then I'm just going to stick this down, matching up the edges, and if you want to just pop a clip on, and then I'm just going to do the same on this side as well. So you should have equal amounts of distance each side. It's approximately 3/4 of an inch each side. It should be no less than 1/2 inch each side if it's 1/2 inch and your zip is slightly larger. If your zip is slightly larger, my advice is to redo one of the tabs and cut your zip down. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just pop that to one side, get my lining fabric piece, and I'm going to run quilter's tape along the one long top edge on the right side of the actual the fabric, but mine's the same colour on both sides. So I'm just gonna okay, so I'm just going to peel off the backing tape off this lining, flip that over, and we're just going to match this raw edge to this raw edge. So I'll stop there, and if I have to move the clips and reposition my clips, then that doesn't matter. Okay, so that's now stuck into place. So we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew. You might want to use a zipper foot, but if you're like me, a bit lazy, I'm going to keep my walking foot on, but where the zip pull is, so where this bit is, I will have to leave my needle down, readjust my fabric and pull my zip pull out the way. So I'm just going to, because I can see that coming a problem, I'm just going to pop a clip down here, down the bottom here, just making sure that this actual bow part doesn't come underneath the foot when we're sewing. I'm just going to pop 2 clips, and it means it's out the way then. Okay, so like I say, I'm going to go to my sewing machine using a stitch length 2.4. I'm going to sew 3/8 of an inch away from the raw edge across this edge here. Okay, so I've stitched across there. I'm just going to remove those clips down the bottom so they don't leave any marks in the PU. Okay, so first of all, I know this is going to cause a problem, so I'm going to trim back that zip tab there. So I'm just going to trim that excess off, and the same with this one as well. I'm doing that because that will stop any bulk issues in the later process. So the next thing I'm going to do is finger press this. Okay. And then I'm going to flip this so the zip is pointing up and the lining has gone underneath. Now, because I'm using PU, I can't press from this side. I'm just going to go over to my iron, and I'm only going to, oh, this is a bit awkward. There you go. I'm going to just lightly press along this edge here. Now, because this PU overhangs a bit, I'm just going to make sure my iron doesn't touch that PU, and I'm also going to make sure my iron doesn't touch this PU here on the 2 tabs. Okay, so I've given those a light press, but to help out, because it's only a really light press, I'm going to get some clips, and I'm going to pull my lining down and clip just along the bottom edge. Means it just holds it out the way. For the next step. Okay, so what I'm going to do is top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here, along from the edge. So I'm just going to go across here 1/8 of an inch away, and as I'm using the full PU, I'm going to do a stitch length number 4 on my sewing machine. I might have to move the zip pull out of the way, but you'll see me do that in the sewing machine footage. Okay, as you can see, I've top stitched along that edge there, and it's caught the line inside here as well. So we're just going to pop this to one side for 1 second, and the next thing we're going to do is just find the centre top of the main outer body piece that hasn't been sewn to the zip yet. So I'm going to fold that in half and snip into that seam allowance. Okay, so back to the one that's got the zip attached. We're going to run quilter's tape along the top of that zip with the zip right side facing up. I'm going to peel off that backing, and I'm just going to make a mark where that half point is so you guys can see, or try and see. Not 100% you can actually see that. Right, okay, so we're going to get the right side of the main outer body piece where that mark is. We're going to flip this right side facing down so it's right side to the bow side of the bit that we're sticking it to. Wow, that was a tongue twister. We've got the centre point here, so we're going to match those up together first. Flip that over and stick this into place. Okay, so the same process as last time. We're going to run quilter's tape along that edge. I'm just moving those clips for a minute. Okay, peel off the backing. Okay, so we're going to get the lining with the slip pocket, and I'm lucky that I just tested it because I went to put my hand into the slip pocket and that's the bottom of the slip pocket. Always make sure you've got the opening of the slip pocket pointing up. We're going to flip this over so the right side of the lining is to the right side of the lining here, and we're just going to stick this into place, matching up the two raw edges like so. I'm going to pop the clips back on, and like before I'm going to stitch 3/8 of an inch away from the edge, and I'm going to move the zip pull out the way when it's needed to be pulled out the way. Okay, so I've sewn that across. I'm going to trim back those zip tabs to match the seam. Okay, and just like before, we're going to open that up and give that a really good finger press. And then I'm going to flip that, close up my zip, pull that lining down so I know it's out of the way. Okay, flip it over, and I'm just going to go to my iron and give this a really light press, making sure my iron doesn't touch the zip tabs as they're PU. Okay, so I've given that a bit of a light press, and once again I'm just going to pull the lining down so it matches up the bottom area, and just clip those two together. So it's just basically holding this into place. So I'm just going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my sewing machine and top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from this folded edge here, which is by the zip, and I'm going to do a stitch length number 4. Okay, so we're now top stitched here. We're going to pull the zip pull down into the centre or 3/4 of an inch, but we just don't want it anywhere near these areas here. So the next thing I'm going to do is, you've got this part of the flap here, of the bow. I'm just going to fold it out the way and just clip it out the way. Okay, that just means it's not in this area here. We're going to grab the main outer body pieces and hold them right sides together, and then when you bring it up, the two lining pieces come together. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, you can see the zip tab in here. We're going to point it up like so, like it does this here, and we're going to match up the two edges here. We're going to pop a clip in. Okay, we're going to flip this over. Now the bow will come undone here, just ignore it for now. Okay, gonna pinch there so the tab goes towards the lining in a U shape. Match up the two top edges here and clip, and as you notice, I'm clipping just under where the lining is. Okay, so I'm just gonna pop that in so the bow is out the way. So next thing I'm going to do is just pop some clips down this side and down this side of the lining. You can pin it if you wanted to on the lining side. Oops. Okay, and then I'm going to run some clips down this end. Then I'm going to run some clips down this edge here. And then what I'm going to do is, as you can see, the bow is there, so I'm just going to push that up. Doesn't matter if it's a bit crunched up. So I'm going to push it up, and I'm going to run some clips along that bottom edge of the main body. Okay, so it will look like a bit of a cushion, a bit of a pillow on this side, because it's got a bit of a spring to it. So the next thing we're going to do is go to our sewing machine. First of all, make sure that zip pull is still in the centre or close to the centre. Mine's about there, that's fine. We're going to go to our sewing machine and sew 3/8 of an inch starting here. We're going to reverse our stitch. We're going to go down to this corner here, pivot across 3/8 of an inch away from the edge, same, and down this, and I'm going to use a stitch length 2.4, and I'm going to reverse my stitch at the end here. Now when it comes to this part here, my walking foot's quite a wide walking foot, so my foot will actually possibly end up landing on where that tab is, and that's quite bulky, that area. So my favourite tool is the bulky seam aid. I sell these in my shop. This is a lifesaver, especially when you've got a bulky seam. You pop this behind your foot or in front of your foot. I will show you in the video footage. And your needle will go in between this gap, in this gap here. And this is to stop any jump stitches. You need your stitches to make the full connection to the bobbin thread underneath. So on my sewing machine, I will show you everything about this. Okay. Right, as you can see, my presser foot is coming up to where that zip tab is. So I'm going to help it along. So I'm leaving my needle down. I'm going to get my bulky seam aid, and you'll notice it's got two thicknesses. I'm going to use the thicker side because this is quite a big bulk. So I'm going to lift up my presser foot, and this bit here is going to go where the needle is. As you can see, it's underneath. I'm going to pop the bulky seam aid right up against where that bulky zip tab is. I'm going to drop my presser foot, and my presser foot is riding flat. If I was not to put the bulky seam aid underneath and to sew over this, my presser foot would have been at an angle, and it definitely wouldn't have made the full stitch. So I'm going to take this nice and slow, keeping my fingers onto the bulky seam aid, and I'm just going to do a few stitches at a time. Okay, so I'm leaving my needle down, and I'm now going to lift up my presser foot, and I'm going to pop, take that clip out, I'm going to pop this now going into the front, like so. Now, saying that, look, this is a perfect example. If you notice, my actual foot is going off at an angle. If I was to carry on sewing, it will basically be not making the full stitch and meeting the bobbin thread underneath. So I need to actually do a few more stitches from this side. So I'm popping my bulky seam aid back into the back, do a few more stitches. Ooh. There you go, a few more stitches. Then I'm going to lift up the presser foot, pop this in at the front, like so. I know it's going off at a slight angle, but that's fine. Oh, I'm done. But that's fine. Right, so I'm going to stop because I know I've run out of stitching area on my bulky seam aid. Just move it forward a tad. Okay, and I'm stopping again because I know my foot is clear of that zip tab. So I'm going to lift up my presser foot, remove that bulky seam aid, and I can just carry on sewing now until the other side of the zip. Okay, so I've sewn down those two sides. Now we need to trim back the bulk. So we're going to just trim the seam allowance by half. With any bag making, the more bulk out the seams you can cut away, the better, and the easier and more pleasing it is to make a bag, because that's the main fault that people don't do in bag making, is cutting away that bulk. That's just adamant, you need to do that. Right, so I'm going to open up my zip fully, and then I'm going to bring the bow out, and I want to get that clip off straight away because it has left a little bit of an indent in there, but I know with rubbing that will disappear, and it basically has. Okay, so I'm just going to get my hand up inside and slowly bring out the bag to the right side. Now you've got to go really slow, you don't want to rip your seams or anything. Just going to get my chopstick into those corners at the bottom. Like so. Okay. I'm going to poke that lining up inside. Do this one. Get my chopstick up inside. And we're going to bring that tab out so it's nice and neat. So I've used pink lining here, and this is a perfect example. My advice is, if you're doing a red, and I honestly did want to show this on the camera, not. But if you don't want to see the lining here, which you will do, my advice is to do the fabric for your lining the same colour as your main body bag. But obviously I did mine in pink because I like pink, but obviously you can see my lining, and that's the same on both sides there as well. So right, so I've poked out the corners. I'm just going to bring the lining out. So the next thing I'm going to do is just turn this up 3/8 of an inch inside, like so, and give that a good press. Okay, so I've given that a good press. Now it's totally up to you whether you want to do a bit of hand stitching now. I'm lazy, naughty, but I'm going to just basically stitch this together with my sewing machine. So I'm just going to pop some clips on. Okay, and I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here across, reversing my stitches. Now you can whip stitch or ladder stitch this if you want to by hand, but that takes too long. Sorry, it takes too long. So I'm just going to use a stitch length 2.4 going across and reversing my stitch and sewing 1/8 of an inch away. Okay, so I've sewn across the top here. I'm just going to pop that inside, poking out those corners. like so. You can close up the zip. Okay, so we're just going to pop this to one side. So we're going to work on this section here of the bow. So you're going to get the last piece that you should have left, flip that over, and you're going to find the centre. So this is 3 inches wide, so we need to measure up 1.5 inches, and we're going to draw a line. So this here I've used with PU. I've interfaced the backing of it. So you can do this part in fabric. So as I'm using PU, I'll be running tape on either side of that drawn line, and then sticking these 2 long edges to those 2 pieces of tape. But you don't need to do that if you're using woven fabric. So if you're using woven fabric, you can just go to your iron and press those 2 long edges to the wrong side where that centre line is, and give that a really good press. But as I'm using PU, I'm just going to run some quilter's tape on either side of that drawn line. Okay, I'm going to peel off the backing off both of those, and I'm going to bring these 2 long sides up to that centre drawn line and push it down into place, and the same with that side. Okay, so as you can see, they match up in the centre. So we're going to bring the right side to right side, matching up the 2 short ends. I'm going to pop a clip in that. Then we're going to go to our sewing machine and sew across here using 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to use a stitch length number 3 as I'm using PU. If you are using woven fabric for this, you'll need to use a stitch length 2.4. And I'm going to reverse my stitches at the start and at the end. Okay, so I've sewn down there. I'm just going to trim this back by half, but what I'm also going to do is, where the edges are, I'm just going to go in at an angle and out at an angle, and I'm just going to trim it back. I'm going to get rid of any loose pieces of thread. And then we're going to turn this right side facing out, like so. Okay, so this next bit can be a bit tricky, but persevere with it, it will happen. Okay, so this tube is obviously the bit in the bow where it's in the centre. So this is the reason why I wanted you to use, if you're going to do a full PU one, to use a softer fabric, a softer PU. So we're going to crunch this up like so, and this seam has got to go pointing towards the back of the bag. So I'm going to push it through that gap, and as you can see, part of my bow is already starting to be made. We will go and readjust over time once we've got this part in. So we're going to go over to the small side, crunch that up, and we're going to, where this part is here, as you can probably just see, there's a gap here. I'm going to get that up in there and persevere, it will come through. Keep poking it up. As you can see, it's coming out. and pull. And you're just going to have to keep readjusting. So now I'm going to keep readjusting this. So I'm going to now just twist it a bit so the bow sits on top, and the same with this bit here. Adjust it so the bow sits on top. It's just trial and error. I also find stuffing the main body bag with something helps, so I'm just going to do that. So I've got some bubble wrap. I'm just going to open up the bag, pop that bubble wrap in. I'm going to push it down to the bottom, like so. So I've pulled a bit too much of that bow through there. Here you go. Like I say, you're just going to have to keep readjusting until you get it spot on. And I think I'm really happy with that. So yeah, and it means that I can get my hand through as well. Right, so I'm just readjusting the sides now. Let's get rid of that. Okay, because you don't want your corners curling up, so you might just have to pull a bit of the bow. And the same with goes for this side as well. And there you go. That's your bow finished. And obviously you can take that out now and fill it up with whatever you want. Now I'm just going to show you what the difference is between the fabric bow one and the full PU bag. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how easy it is for someone that's a bit of a beginner and doesn't want to tackle the wrestling that goes on with this bow with a full PU. So I'm going to show you how to do the actual fabric one. So it's exactly the same motion, but try your hardest not to crease it too much. I'm going to slide that on. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it like that. Same with this one. And I'm going to feed that in at the bottom. Like so, and I'm just going to pull. I'm going to pull that one. And that was a lot easier. There isn't much bag wrestling after that to just adjust the bow. Stuff it out. So I'll just make the bubble wrap from this one. Pop that in there. And just keep adjusting that bow until you know it's perfect. If you're wondering what fabric this is by Dashwood. part of one of Dashwood's ranges. Okay, and there you go. You've got 2 styles of bow bags. This zip pulls on for if you are a right-handed person, and this is been implemented if you're a left-handed person. So it's totally up to you, really. But yeah. So what did you think of making this elegant clutch bag? So yeah, any questions, please don't hesitate to ask and drop in the comments below, or come over to my social media pages, which are in the comments below, to get this free download, digital download. No, that's in the description below. So yeah, any questions, no question is a bad question, no question is a stupid question in my world. I will answer anything bag relating easily, if I know how to answer that is. Once again, thanks ever so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you soon on this channel, and there will be some free patterns coming up in the next few weeks. Have a nice day. Bye.